Let's go, baby. Game day and Monday Night Football tonight with the Birds taking on the Hawks. And I went behind enemy lines to talk with Brandon Caine of the Hawks Nest to see how the Eagles can take advantage of Seattle's weaknesses. Plus, why have we not seen more of Rashaad Penny? So let's break it down. But first, let's run it. It's been 15 years since Philly has won in Seattle. You guys are 7-0 the last matchups. I know I hear you on the concerns, and maybe this is, again, just trying to be a little bit more like humble with my own team here. But as you go into it, I mean, Seattle's not an easy place to play. I think everyone across the league knows that. That's a very easy thing. But from the standpoint of this game here, what are you, I guess, expecting from, I think Geno, is he questionable? I think I saw that report. He's questionable as of right now.
He's questionable.
Okay.
And Locke's been getting first team snaps, so it could kind of still go either way on that one.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess curious to get your take on this. Is it better to get a questionable, however healthy Geno might be to play, or would a Drew Lock, healthy, him getting the first team reps from what you've seen, and kind of, I don't know if you watched the breakdown of last week or just how Drew played, but curious what might be better for me, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh boy, I know this is not going to be the answer to your question, but it's the true answer, which is that I don't know that it makes a difference. The issues going on with the Seahawks team and a little bit of where the fan base is, and generally some of the fan base is in a state of kind of, they're kind of down the team. There's a lack of an excitement right now, not because the season's gone bad, but because the issues that sort of plague us continue week after week, year after year, without ever being really resolved or even tried to be dealt with at times, and a variety of issues at that. And so, our defense, for instance, is one where we're supposedly running this cover 2 Vic Fangio, but we're not running anything of like how it's normally run. We're trying to hybridize it. The hybridization has not worked. You end up, rather than picking a lane, you end up, running right down the middle. What's the middle of the point in the fairway or in the freeway where there's just grass and then divots
and then
the median. We're basically end up rolling out. We're taking out pedestrians and bicyclists. It's just horrible. So you've got to pick a lane with it. We haven't with that. Our defense, though, can't stop the run, can't stop the pass. We don't get very many turnovers. We don't cause a lot of pressure or generate any real sacks. We can't get very many stops on third down. We allow big plays, whether you're running or passing. We'll allow you big plays on either side of it. It does become a little bit of one. If I go up against an offense like Philly that has all of these guys that they can hit you with, we struggle against a Carolina offense. We gave up 27 points too early on this year. How do we keep you guys under 34, 35? So then it becomes the offense has to put, like that Cowboy game a couple weeks ago, our offense has to score 37. And that's really hard for any quarterback, Locke or Smith. Between Locke or Smith, Geno's a little bit better. Locke gives you maybe a little bit of the upside because he's still a younger guy, but he gives you much more of the turnover-worthy play. He's going to throw it to you. He's going to give it up at a much higher rate than Geno will. But they're very close together as far as really ultimately, I think, what they bring to the football field.
It just feels like you guys do have a lot of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. I know you mentioned sometimes it just doesn't, that secret sauce, it doesn't really blend together. But the middle of the field, you may already know this, but the middle of the field is wide open against Philly. So for anybody watching, if you have the tight end, if you have Lockett, Lockett is my lock, no pun intended there. But like, if you want to play someone fantasy wise, I've told everyone all week, they're like, hey, what about the Philly game? Pick him on Prize Picks, pick him on wherever you can get him, and the yardage total over, because we can't stop the middle of the field. We can't stop slot receivers. We can't stop any of that creativity. Smith and Jigba may be a good pick as well, but I don't know. It just feels like one of those shootouts that's probably coming.
Well, I would agree with you if we were willing to throw it short or in the middle of the field. But unfortunately, our offense, rather than being, we brought in Waldron to be a guy that was going to be a Sean McVay acolyte who would bring Sean McVay's offense to this team. He has not done that. Much like taking on the Fangio defense, we've sort of done it in name only, right? Like we married you, but we didn't actually take you in the house. We just took your last name. That's pretty much what we've done here. And it's on both sides of the ball. So our offense looks much more akin to what it was when the Russell Wilson days, where it was a lot of power runs right in the middle of the defense, and then you're going to bring the safety up into the box and then take your shot over the top. And it was real rudimentary, but it worked because you had Russell there who could be the magician behind the pocket at times and overcome a simple scheme to make it work. So we've really kind of in this year at times found ourselves sliding more back in those machinations. And those Russell teams ignored short passes, ignored the middle of the field, partly because he was 5'10" and he just couldn't see you in those passes. But we've still continued to remain to do so. We think it's because Carroll has a real worry about turnovers in the middle of the field. And so he's kind of instructed his coordinators not to go there for that reason. But this stands out, for instance, if you look at, you can see these quarterback heat charts that they'll post sometimes, and you can see where they've hit their completions. And if you type in Geno Smith heat chart, you get a snapshot of the last year pictures of the throws in these games. And it's all outside the hash marks, out there on the sidelines, every single throw, and it's either short or they're taking it deep. And so that's where my worry comes in this game, is that I think you guys have some holes that we could attack. I don't know if we're going to be as committed to attacking those holes.
I guess we'll see, but I would argue that we might be the most predictable defense on the field.
Oh,
so
really?
we show up in a cover zero look, and we're gonna blitz you. It's cover
That's
zero.
What I don't get.
Not,
these guys learned at this guy's foot. What did you stop learning? Why do you stop learning at the thing that was at the whole fundamental beginning point of the Fangio cover 2 shell is to disguise, I swear, and you're probably in the same boat as me. It drives me up a wall that you're going to, in this modern NFL with all the complexity and pre and post snap motion, that you're going to make things simplistic and easy. Why would you ever want to do that?
I don't know.
And we do the same thing. I don't get it. But this is not the Fangio scheme. Then that's my thing with it. Then don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. It ain't Fangio's scheme. Then it's something else. It's the Desai scheme. It's the Hurt Carroll scheme, whatever you want to call it here. But that's the whole point of it, is you get a quarterback coming up and they've got to mentally sit there and process stuff, and they don't know as sure of what they're getting. And then post snap, oh God, it's this. But if I see this and then I drop back here and I know that, for instance, we like to run the cover 3 or cover 4. Those are the 2 defenses you get. Both of those defenses are basically umbrella coverages to try to get to depth and prevent the deep ball, which teams basically don't try to really utilize much anymore. So we're covering 9 routes that rarely teams don't really. You guys run some with AJ, but it's a mix, right?
Yeah.
So then we have all these guys drop back, and then there's all these holes in the middle and short point of the defense all across the board, because we're so preordained to dropping back. We're also showing you that pre-snap. So we're showing you we're going to drop into this. And then what do you think the offenses then do? What do you think your offense will probably be doing then?
It would take advantage of it. Yep.
Bink, just easy completions all day long. Yeah, it's been the problem at the forefront of defense. So it's good to hear that at least we're not the only ones suffering for this, what I would call idiocracy, because it really makes no sense. You learn from this guy. This guy helped you to get a job by what you learned off of him. Now you get the job and you stop doing what helped you get the job.
I don't get it. I'm with you. Misery loves company, though. So yes, there's that element to it. But same deal. We will play. We'll have. I don't know if we still do. I bet we do, because we're dead last in third down percentage anyway. But we did lead the league in 3rd down and 7 and longer conversions given up, and it's without fail. You could be 3rd and 7, it could be 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, and everyone's going to back up coverage, and they're just going to say, take the first down. You can run a 12-yard dig, and I'm just going to let you run right in front of me, in front of the first down marker. Oh, good, you caught it. Now I'm going to tackle you there, and it never fails. I don't know what it is. You'll devise up. You're hoping for a little bit of throwing off the quarterback. All of a sudden, it's like, well, here's what you get. I was watching one of the film breakdowns from Fran Duffy. He covers the Eagles, a part of the official Eagles deal, and he was showing the same thing. He's like, you have a look here. This is a absolute sound the alarm to the quarterback. A blitz is coming, and what happens? A blitz comes straight there, and there's no change up. They're running from the exact same gaps, and they pick it up. First down. We make it so easy. And, everyone here loves blitzing. Like Philly, that's probably synonymous with Philly as blitzes. Like everyone loves blitzing. Everyone wants coaches to do it. Desai's not done it as much, which it's not necessarily a problem, but the fact that now we haven't been able to get pressure on the quarterback. Like our pass rush, which used to be vaunted last year, 70 sacks and, all this rotational pass rush and dominance and everything else. Like we're middle of the pack, and it's very undisciplined pass rush this season. We talk about Jalen Carter being good and living up to expectations, but overall, the pass rushers themselves have even said last week after the game, Josh Sweat, he pulled a reporter from the defensive side and walked over to the offensive side to kind of voice some frustration so that not everybody else would hear him, and essentially says, we got a bunch of individuals out here. Like no one's keeping contain. No one's keeping their gap. I'm trying to pressure the quarterback and that's it. And he's like, I'm used to, if we get pressure on a quarterback, everyone's still there to wrap him up and contain. And that hasn't happened. I mean, this season so far, it's been, a little bit of pressure. Well, there goes the quarterback wide open. Either it's a run, he can take off and run. He can scramble out of the pocket. He can keep a play alive. And our secondary certainly has not lived up to keeping any sort of, pass coverage or anyone under wraps there. So I'm with you. There's lots of holes in the defense. There's lots of things that I'm concerned about. So
again, commiseration, dude. We're 24th in our blitz rate this year, I believe, but we are 32nd in 6-man blitzes or more. So again, does our front four get pressure on their own? No, they do not. And you talk about guys leaving their pass rush lanes. My opinion on this is that it's good to trust your front four. I get that. And I'm not trying to be the de facto cliche fan that says blitz a lot all the time. Let's go. But I will say this, when you're trying to trust those front four, they know they've got to get home individually. And they know that there's that pressure to do so. And there's going to be a little bit of, I think, a draw to then leave a little bit of your integrity at that point when you know it's on us to get it done. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's you're dealing with the same blitzes, but when we don't want to blitz with those 6-man blitzes, and when you do get a blitz, like that Fran guy you're talking about, I'd be interested to see if it was these 5-man blitzes to nowhere, as I like to call them. Because you had a 4-man against a 5-man protection. You bring a blitz, you're now getting just 5-on-5. Say nothing of if there's a back there to help up if anybody does get through. Mm-hmm. You've not accomplished the thing you seek to accomplish when you blitz, which is to get a free rusher. Which is to get a guy that, and so it's like you're doing it technically, yes, but you're not really doing it in the spirit by which you would hope to do it. And I don't know if that's what your team's doing with it, but that's definitely with ours, how we've done it.
Oh, I completely agree. It's like I say, the more that we talk this through, it feels like I'm looking in a mirror from the Eagles standpoint and the struggles that we have, because it's the same thing. When we do blitz, it literally looks like, oh, cool. He's blitzing to blitz. Like there's no purpose to it. It's just like, well, hey, we blitzed. We tried it. Didn't work, but we threw some guys in there. It's like, there's no purpose. You guys
got it. Yeah. There's no purpose. There's no disguise like you talked about. I mean, that's part of the lack of commitment to doing it. Because if you're bringing a lot of stack fronts, but you're dropping them out a lot of the time, there comes the confusion. But if I always got 4-man and then a guy comes creeping up, it stands out like just this right there, okay, he's coming, no doubt about it. It's really weird. Again, coming back to, I don't get it, man, but it is frustrating. And it'll be interesting to see what the next turn is from an NFL perspective on who's the next Fangio defense, which is the one, or just maybe a learning that you got to run it true. You got to run it real pure to the type of it to make it work rather than your own thing. But it's weird. Look at what Fangio did. I know you probably did, but look what he did with Chicago. With the level of talent he had there as a defensive coordinator and the productivity he got there versus what he's getting from you guys now at the Eagles. He had nothing, and he had like 2 guys in Chicago.
Yeah. There was
like 2 guys.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah. I can't even explain it. It's frustrating. I was like, oh yeah, he could do that with Chicago. You add him here, this is gonna be great. And it just
no brainer.
Not so far. No
brainer. But it's just like the brain fell out or something. I got the job.
I was going to ask you too, because actually this reminded me here. Nicholas says, isn't Rashaad Penny in Philly? So I've got to ask you, because this is the number one topic over the last several weeks, certainly with our running game struggling. So we've got DeAndre Swift, and for some reason the offense doesn't really like to use him a whole lot. They don't like to run the football. Then we've got Kenny Gainwell, who's kind of the spell back. He gets a lot of 2-minute action, third down. He's undoubtedly the best passing block, so I can understand with that. But it's gotten to the point of Philly being irate, saying, hey, we need to run the football. You got picketers showing up to the team complex saying, run the football, calling into radio shows. It's all over the place, right? They want to run the football. We acquired Rashaad Penny in the offseason. Now, I know that he was coming off of an injury, but they've given him, I think it's 5 carries, if I'm not mistaken, only 5 carries the entire year. Now, if our running game was firing on all cylinders, I'd be like, well, whatever, we don't need it. But it's like there's an unwillingness, and not only is it not run the ball with Penny, he's been inactive for all but I think 2 games this season. So curious, I haven't gotten to talk to a Seahawks fan since, acquiring. It's been a long time, since we acquired Rashaad Penny, but did you guys see anything? And maybe it's hard to say because it'd be, before his injury, but was he showing any signs of kind of already losing a step or anything else like that before the gruesome injury? Or I'm just curious to get an outsider's take, someone who knows him from previously.
No, the game he went down in Detroit, he busted off, I think, a 60-yarder earlier in that game, which was on the back of him just outrunning everybody. Rashaad comes out of college as this odd guy that he had one of the cleanest medical evaluations that we'd ever had, according to the coaching staff and coming out. But he had also had heavy usage at San Diego State. So a lot of carries on that body coming out. Mm-hmm. He's also that weird kind of guy who's just sort of naturally 225, 230, who can kind of almost run in that low 4.4s-ish range when he was coming out, right? Like it was in this, usually we get that speed. You got to have like Jahmyr Gibbs size guys that are 190 pounds. You don't get the extra 30 pounds, which then allows him to be, when he gets up to full speed, guys come tackle him. It's not him doing juke moves. You're just falling off his body because he's so big. It looked like to me in preseason with your Eagles team and watching a couple of snaps of Penny that it looked like he was running in mud. And what's always bothered me a little bit with Penny and wondering on sometimes these injuries, because I think sometimes injuries are impacted by how you do train. And when you do see players that have a high prevalence of injuries throughout their career, I think sometimes you can backtrack that to diet and training. And when you look at Penny, you see a guy that doesn't look like your typical running back. He's got the doughy midsection, the doughy arms. And I know this is me, body shaming a player, but we're making guesses here. And my guess is that he's not in the best of shape. He's not worked out as hard as he could. He hasn't done all the steps. He probably doesn't even love football. He just loves probably getting paid like it. And I'm not trying to question the guy's heart or anything, but he looked remarkably slower this preseason with your Eagles team than he did on his last day here. And it wasn't that major of an injury that it was going to rob him of that speed. It should have been one that he could get back, but that does come to. And look, he's had a couple injuries, it breaks down the spirit. You're rehabbing here, you're rehabbing there, then you're back to rehabbing again. You can only wonder how that's going to, hurt a guy's mentality. But the bottom line is that you're not going to be able to lean on him. And if I could push back to some of the Eagle fans too, wanting to see Swift, from your head coach's perspective, look at the situation. Penny's a no-go, nothing burger, ain't coming. You got nobody else that you're going to go get off the streets at this time of the year that's going to provide any impact into that backfield. Gainwell is also a guy that gets beat up quite a bit over his time. And he doesn't look like all that terribly effective when he's run this year so far. Swift is your one guy rolling. What does Swift also have? A very rich injury history. What does Swift had happen early on in this year? Heavy usage by the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a formula where you could come, if you're in this middle part of the year hammering him, guess who's not going to be there for the playoffs? Guess who won't have a ground game once you get in the playoffs and when you really need him? Now, that's just my take on it, but I think that there's probably a little of that in Sirianni's approach and how he's managing him. Look at that in difference to how the Niners have been using McCaffrey, where they're riding him like a mule going up the Grand Canyon for 10 tours a day all throughout this season.
Yeah.
And if he gets injured, that's the thing no one will talk about. If McCaffrey gets injured, no one will point to these kind of things, but that's what good coaches do throughout a year, is that they load manage these guys, especially positions like a running back that is so easy to break and which you got so thin depth on. Let's get a final prediction score too, as we kind of wrap it up.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I appreciate Brandon too, just having me on. Like I say, always good to chop it up with the opposing fan base. I know we'll have our differences Monday night. I would say good luck, but I wouldn't mean it, so I won't go there.
I wouldn't either. I hope you guys. I hope it's a blowout.
That's totally fair. As far as the score prediction, though, I will say again, I think it's going to be pretty offensive battle, like we talked about with the defenses. Not too much confidence there. I'm going to say Eagles 31-27. That's what I'm going to go with. How about you? You got some faith? You're selling me more on the potential of having a shot. So but I'm only going to give 3 points. I'm only giving 3 points for your injury situation. So I was coming to this last night. I had us at 27-20. I'm going to go 27-23 at this point as a score. Eagles. I think we've lost 4 straight. We're backsliding. We're falling into all of our worst habits right now. I hope they can turn that around. I want to see that turned around. But there's so many things to get right so often. And with you guys, there's a couple things you guys got to get right, I feel like. And that's, even with the injury situation, that's just not enough for me to feel like we can quite overcome. But we're going to give you a hell of a battle. It's Monday Night Football. The crowd's going to be turned up prime time. Carroll teams do well in prime time, so it ain't going to be easy. But it should be a good game at the very least, which is what we both love to see, I'm sure.